Per the audit remediation plan, payment release is now restricted to dual approval roles only. The sentence sat in an all-hands email with no bolding, no warning labels. At 9:07 a.m., when the first support ticket came in, labeled urgent, refund stuck, the green Release Now button in the payout console was gone. In its place, a gray notice, approval chain required, finance director plus risk. The ticket clock kept running. The console didn't argue, it just waited. By 9:24 a.m., the workaround that had always worked no longer existed. Mara opened the payout queue and did what the process allowed. She attached the customer ID, the dispute log, the bank trace. The new form had 12 required fields where there used to be 3. The system demanded a case number from risk before it would even generate an approval request. She copied the fields into the ticketing system because the ticketing system was now the system of record. The refund wasn't blocked by a person in that moment. It was blocked by the shape of the workflow. The support agent added one line, "Customer is threatening to post." Mara forwarded the ticket into the queue that was now mandatory. At 10:03, the procedure changed again, this time in a meeting room. Starting today, DevOps said, all urgent payout changes go through service desk. No direct pings, no side approvals. Submit, wait for SLA, then approve in sequence. They said it the way people say zip your file before sending. Not hostile, not personal. The micro consequence arrived immediately. The Service Desk portal had a default SLA of 48 business hours, unless a manager selected a dropdown marked Executive Escalation. The dropdown was invisible unless you had the right role. Mara submitted the ticket anyway. It returned a number, automatically stamped with priority normal. Nothing else happened. The number existed. The refund did not. At 2:16 p.m., the first consequence left the building. A partner bank emailed Treasury. Settlement instruction missing for client Aurora. Cutoff passed. Next window, tomorrow 10. Client Aurora was not a random account. It was the logo on last quarter's investor deck. Their COO didn't email support. She emailed the VP of Sales, who messaged the finance director, who sent a calendar invite titled Quick Sync Payment Release. Mara wasn't the decision maker in that chain. She was added as optional because someone needed to answer what missing meant in system terms. The meeting started at 2:30. The refund ticket number sat on the screen like a receipt. At 3:05, someone put a number on the delay. Treasury shared the bank's fee schedule. Missed settlement window, $18,000 in processing penalties. If Aurora's payout didn't land by next day's window, the contract clause triggered a 0.5% service credit. The spreadsheet didn't show anger, it showed columns. Sales asked whether the credit was real money. Legal said it was deductible against invoices. The CFO asked for a timestamp of when the release request had been submitted. Mara opened Service Desk and read the entry, submitted 0924. Priority normal. SLA 48 hours. No one argued with the portal, they just stared at it longer than they expected. At 4:11, the disliked person in the room did what he always did. He added pressure without adding capacity. Evan, finance director, messaged Mara directly, "Can you just push it like before? We can't miss another window." The message didn't contain threats, it contained assumptions, that the same invisible buffering would appear on command, that just push it was a verb that still existed. Mara replied with the same language the company used on itself. Release Now is removed under the remediation plan. Service Deck ticket is in queue. Approval chain requires risk case number. Evan responded 5 minutes later with a second message, longer this time, with a screenshot circled in red, and one extra sentence, "I'm in back-to-backs, make sure it doesn't get stuck." At 6:02 p.m., Mara did the only thing in the story that was hers to do. Every day for 2 years, she had quietly done a piece of work that was not written anywhere. She pre-checked payout cases before they touched leadership. She pulled logs, reconciled mismatches, flagged missing attachments, and most importantly, sent Evan a 2-line reminder when an approval was time-sensitive. Not a favor, not a rebellion, a buffer. It made the chain look smooth, and made Evan look fast. That evening, she stopped doing that. She submitted the payout package exactly as the new checklist required, no more and no less. She attached what the form asked for. She did not add the extra reconciliation note that usually prevented risk from rejecting it. She did not message Evan that the bank's cutoff was 10 a.m. and the approval would need to be in before 9:45 to clear the batch. The ticket existed. The portal would handle the rest. At 9:38 a.m. the next day, the chain behaved the way it was built to behave. Risk returned the case with one automated line: insufficient evidence, missing reconciliation of dispute log versus bank trace. The rejection restarted the clock. Service desk generated a new SLA timestamp. Sales refreshed the dashboard and watched Aurora's payout status remain pending. Treasury emailed again. Cut off in 22 minutes. Do we have approval? Evan asked in the group chat. Who owns this? The ticket number was pasted back and forth like a substitute for action. At 10:07 a.m., the bank window closed. At 10:09, the CFO forwarded the internal chain to audit with a subject line: example of control friction. Please advise. At 10:14, Evan sent one more message to Mara. Need you on this. Approve path is blocking. Mara didn't send a second reply. She didn't need to. The system already had one. The approval request stayed pending. By noon, the delay had acquired a shape. The service desk dashboard updated itself every 15 minutes. Each refresh added a new timestamp, a new line that said waiting on prerequisite. The prerequisite was the reconciliation note that used to appear automatically, written by someone who was not named in any policy. Without it, Risk would not issue a case number. Without a case number, finance could not approve. Without approval, the payout queue remained unchanged. At 12:42 p.m., customer success logged a second ticket. This one tagged client escalation. The wording was careful. Aurora is requesting confirmation of settlement timing. No accusations, just a request for certainty. The ticket linked to the same payout ID, which now had two references pointing at it from different systems. Neither reference moved it forward. At 1:10, sales asked for a bridge. They didn't call it an emergency. They called it alignment. The invite included Treasury, legal, finance, and one person from Risk who had not yet opened the case. Mara joined muted because she was still optional. On the shared screen, the payout status sat unchanged. Someone asked whether the rejection could be overridden. Risk said overrides required documentation. Legal asked whether the documentation existed. Silence filled the gap where the reconciliation note usually lived. At 1:37, the first measurable spillover landed. Treasury updated the forecast. The missed settlement window added $18,000 to processing penalties, effective immediately. The service credit clause was flagged as likely, pending Aurora's next invoice. The forecast cell turned yellow, then orange. No one commented on the color. They commented on the date. Can we make the next window? Sales asked. Treasury answered with a time. Approval by 9:45 tomorrow. The meeting ended without decisions. The ticket did not. At 3:04 p.m., Evan tried a different route. He submitted a new service desk request, selecting executive escalation this time. The drop-down appeared for him. The system accepted the request and assigned a different SLA, 24 business hours. The original ticket remained open. Two parallel processes now pointed at the same payout. Neither closed the other. The system did not reconcile duplicates by design. At 4:22, Risk replied again, this time to the escalated ticket. Same line. Insufficient evidence. Missing reconciliation. The rejection attached a checklist, 3 items long. Item 2 referenced an internal wiki page that had not been updated since before the audit. The page described a shortcut that no longer existed. At 5:10, Aurora followed up. They didn't threaten. They asked for a written explanation for our records. Customer Success drafted a response and routed it to Legal. Legal removed 2 adjectives and added a sentence about enhanced controls. The email went out at 5:26. It contained no time estimate. At 6:01, the calendar moved on. The next morning, the queue opened the same way it always did, with yesterday's work at the top. At 8:47 a.m., Evan posted in the group chat again, this time tagging Risk. Any chance we can clear Aurora before cutoff? Risk replied with a screenshot of the checklist and a single line, pending reconciliation. No emojis, no tone. At 9:12, Sales refreshed the CRM and watched Aurora's status change from active to at risk. The field updated automatically when a payout exceeded its expected settlement window. The system did not ask who was responsible. At 9:31, the CFO joined the chat and asked for one owner. The word landed and stayed there. Names scrolled by. None of them closed the ticket. At 9:44, Treasury posted the cutoff reminder. 16 minutes. At 9:46, Evan sent Mara a calendar invite titled, 10 minutes please join. It started at 9. The payout still read pending. At 9:58, the bank window closed again. At 10:02, the forecast updated itself. The service credit moved from likely to applied. The number appeared next to Aurora's account, small but exact. Sales stopped refreshing. Please provide documentation demonstrating adherence to the revised approval workflow for the Aurora payout. The request included a due date. End of week. By 11:07, the documentation existed. Screenshots of tickets, SLA timestamps, rejection notices, approval chains that never completed. The artifacts were accurate. They did not explain themselves. At 11:40, Evan sent one last message to Mara. If you have the reconciliation, can you attach it? We need to close this. Mara did not open the draft she had saved months ago. She attached nothing. At 12:03 p.m., the service desk portal refreshed. The Aurora request remained in queue, status unchanged, with a new line beneath it. Next review, pending prerequisites. By early afternoon, the delay began to compress other work around it. Customer success rerouted two unrelated cases because the same payout queue was saturated. The system enforced limits by design. When one item exceeded its expected dwell time, the queue slowed for everything behind it. A banner appeared at the top of the dashboard. High volume processing times may be extended. No one had set the banner. It was triggered. At 1:18 p.m., a different client's refund missed its same-day promise. The reason field auto-filled with a drop-down selection. Dependency unresolved. The drop-down did not allow free text. At 2:04, Treasury sent a summary to leadership. 3 lines. Penalties incurred, $18,000. Service credit applied, 0.5%. Additional exposure if unresolved by Friday, $62,000. The numbers sat there without commentary. The email did not include names. At 2:37, Risk added a note to the original ticket. Not a rejection this time. A clarification. Reconciliation required per section 4.2. Please attach. The note reset the SLA clock again. The portal logged the reset automatically. Time moved forward in visible increments. At 3:11, Sales asked whether the payout could be split. Treasury checked the policy. Splits required the same approval chain as full releases. The answer was no, delivered as a sentence that referenced a clause number. At 3:46, Evan tried to close the loop another way. He forwarded the risk checklist to Mara, with a single question mark in the body. The attachment loaded. The checklist was complete as written. The missing piece was not mentioned anywhere on the page. It lived between systems, in the space where someone used to look before the form existed. At 4:29, the CFO scheduled a standing meeting for the rest of the week. Aurora Daily 15. The invite included audit. The agenda field was blank. The first daily happened at 5 a.m. It lasted 9 minutes. They reviewed the same artifacts. They confirmed the same status. They ended on the same sentence. We'll wait for the prerequisite. No one asked who had provided it before. The next morning, the delay crossed a threshold. At 8:55 a.m., Aurora's procurement system auto-generated a notice. Payment variance detected. The notice triggered a hold on a separate renewal order scheduled to process at noon. The hold was reversible, but only after settlement confirmation. Customer success learned about it from a forwarded PDF. At 9:14, Treasury flagged the renewal risk. The dollar amount was larger than the service credit. The email subject included the word exposure. At 9:33, Evan joined the daily early. He asked if anyone had found the reconciliation. Risk said they would review if attached. Audit said they would need to see the same artifact for compliance. Sales asked if a verbal confirmation would help. Treasury said the bank would not accept verbal confirmations. At 9:41, the meeting ended again. The portal did not. At 10:06, the bank sent its standard notice. Settlement window closed. The timestamp was precise to the minute. At 10:27, the system applied the next rule. Because the payout had exceeded 3 missed windows, the queue reclassified it. The status changed from pending to aged. A new field appeared. Additional review required. The additional review belonged to a committee that met on Thursdays. It was Tuesday. At 11:02, Evan sent one more message to Mara. It was shorter than the others. Can you help? The message showed as delivered. It did not show a reply. At 11:18, Customer success updated Aurora's account notes. Awaiting internal review. The phrase had been used before. It did not include a date. At 11:47, the daily meeting was canceled. The calendar notice cited no updates. At 12:15, the service desk portal refreshed again. The Aurora ticket remained in place, unchanged except for one line at the bottom. Committee review scheduled. Thursday. No one followed up that message.